Welcome to LIS754, Systems Analysis and Design, and in this session we're going to talk about user-centered design. User-centered design can be used in many types of product development, not just software development process, but we're going to talk about it in terms of software analysis and design. It's a framework of processes. It is not a specific technology. It is not a specific type of interface. It is a way of thinking about user interface in which the user, as the name implies, is the center, in which we think about the needs and the issues that a user might have, what the user wants to do, including and we also think about the limits that the user has. How much experience does the user have? What skills does the user bring to this environment? And how they're going to use this product. How are they going to use our products, our services? And we think about them through the whole process. And this is, I think, a very nice drawing of how user-centered design, UCD, user-centered design, works. And we can see how this flows along. We have to understand our users. If we're going to think about them and their limits and their needs and their desires and what they want to accomplish using our systems, then we have to understand them, and that involves research. And we have to define their interactions, and we've started to do that with our use cases, and we'll continue to refine those as we go on. And then we design the user interface. So we have our use cases. We're going to take those use cases and we're going to use them in our design. We're going to be making prototypes, basically paper or two-dimensional user interfaces, and eventually, hopefully, some of us will get our systems developed and we'll have that process validated by users actually using our materials. So one of the things we do as part of those use case developments, as part of our thinking about the interface design, is to analyze the tasks at hand. What are the things that have to be done? What are the sequence of events that have to take place in order to complete an activity? And we started doing that with the use cases. When you get into doing the development of your specific user interfaces, you will refine those. You'll have new information, you've got your data, you're going to put those two things together in terms of for your interface, thinking about how things are going to do them, breaking down the steps into the tasks into discrete steps and putting them in an order that makes sense. We want our systems and our interfaces and our task design to follow most closely the order of steps that people do them in a normal, real-world environment. So when someone goes to Amazon to buy a book, or buy, shoes or whatever, goes to a website to buy something, they follow a sequence of steps that mimic what they do in real life. They either come in thinking about that they don't know exactly what they want, but they want a new pair of shoes and they want to browse shoes, so that we're going to give them options for browsing. We're going to give them options for if they know exactly what they want, that we can make it easy for them to do that. So if someone comes in and wants a pair of wingtip shoes in a size 10.5, and they already know that they want Florsheim wingtip shoes, we should be able to allow them to buy that without going through a lot of intermediate steps, just like they would if they walked into a store. So we want to mimic the real life experience to make it as understandable as possible. And we want to think about ways that we can streamline processes so that they're even more simple. How can we use automation and the power of computation to make some of these processes more automatic. So when we're designing the user interface, we want to follow a set of rules, and these are a set of rules here that that are part of the whole user-centered design processes. So we want an interface that is transparent. That's easy to use and remember, that provides efficiency, that is consistent and predictable, that uses real life motifs. So if we're going to use colors in our site and we're going to put out error messages, we should use red. We should use red to be an error message, not green, right? Green denotes going, red denotes stopping. We want to use processes and motifs that are understandable and predictable to people. If we use the word submit in one screen and the next screen we're using go, those are not consistent. We want the terms that we use across our systems to be consistent and recognizable and usable to people. We want to minimize data entry problems. So I was at a site the other day, and I couldn't believe that in the year 2016 that this was a problem. I typed in a phone number. It required a phone number. I typed in my phone number, and it put back an error message saying, please use an open parentheses. It put up what I should do. Parentheses, 1, 2, 3, end parentheses, space, 3 numbers, dash, 4 numbers. It didn't tell me that beforehand. It didn't insert them itself, which it certainly could do. It could have minimized that error by being a little bit smarter, and it made that was not user-centered designed. It made data entry hard. It didn't give me clues about what it wanted me to do. Now, it did allow me to correct the error, but it should not have been an error in the first place. And we want a logical and attractive layout. But we don't want the layout to be the focus of the entire system. We want the focus of the system to be in completing the task, completing the objectives of the system itself rather than the interface. So sometimes the interface gets in the way, and we want the interface to not get in the way. We want to have an interface that is easy to learn. So we alluded to this before, that we need things clearly labeled. All controls, all buttons, all icons, everything needs to have a label to it. We want to have images that are, it's lovely to have images. It makes for a beautiful website. But we need images that users can understand. If we have an icon that doesn't make sense to people, it's not. You might as well just have words as opposed to an image. We need on-screen instructions sometimes that are clear and concise and usable. We want to have, when we pull down a menu, when we pull down a list of options that people have, so like in Microsoft Word, we know under the File menu, we have Save and Save As and all sorts of things. If one of those is not currently available, that is, I haven't done anything, I don't have it's not an option that I can use at this point in my work, I want it to be in that list, but it should be gray. They also call it grayed out, not just dimming, but grayed out, so that I know that it's still there. All the commands are there. I just can't click on it. I have a visual clue that I can't, that it's not usable to me. Instead of having people click on things and then having an error come up saying, you can't do that right now. We want to have systems that are easy to navigate, that we can return to a previous place that we were, or go to a future, to another location easily. I don't want to have to go back to the beginning and page through 4 different options, or 4 different, I don't want to have to make 4 clicks to get back to where I was. I want to be able to move and navigate easily. And there's lots of ways that we can do that. We can have what's called little breadcrumbs, little options across the top of the screen that can take us back to places, to the places that people want to go. We want to have it clear to people where they can go and how to get there. We want to be able to enhance user productivity. We want to have things grouped. We want to have things organized that resemble business operations, that resemble the processes that we're going to go through. We don't want to force people to put in billing information before they have picked the shoes that they want to buy. We want it to be clear and logical and well organized. We want to have a good way of organizing our menu lists or our option lists, and we can do that a couple of ways. You can put things in alphabetical lists so people will always know where they are, or put things that are most frequently used at the top. Either of those works, as long as it's, as we talked about in the first one of these options, is that it is consistent. I don't want to have one list of things alphabetized and the next one organized by most frequent use. Right? That's just too confusing for people. We want to have shortcuts so that experienced users can avoid unnecessary steps, or things that they've done before. We want to be able to have very clear, straightforward instructions for novices, and ways that experienced users can bypass things they don't feel that they need to do or need to know. We want to be able to set default values if we know that there are going to be repeated data fields, right? Or have information fill in from other places in the system. There's nothing I get irritated by more than having to type in the same information over and over again. I want to, it's very nice if we can have a feature that understands when I'm typing, so sort of an automatic fill-in feature. So if I start typing a term, it's going to find the closest terms. And we see this all the time. Google does this, Amazon, lots of different companies do this, or lots of different websites do this, and it's super helpful. And we really want to be able to use natural language as much as we possibly can. We want to make sure that we can make it easy for users to obtain help or correct errors. Help should always be available. So there's a couple of, in another class that I teach, I use a small web application to let people create Dublin Core records. And next to each of the Dublin Core elements, there's a little question mark, and they can click on that question mark and get the full description of what that field is. And that's a lovely way to do it, having a little question mark icon next to each of the fields so that people can click on it, get a quick description of what that is and how it should work. So that can be really, really helpful. And that's that help is always available. Help is always available, and it's context sensitive. So what I was describing in that web app that helps people build Dublin Core records is context sensitive. For each element of that Dublin Core record, there was help specific. I didn't get help about fields I didn't care about. So it's really, really usable, really helpful and usable. I don't want to get lost in the help system. I've had this happen any number of times where I go to ask help and then my context is lost. I go back to the screen I was on. All the data I had previously entered is gone. That's incredibly frustrating. It's really helpful to have contact information of how to contact people for help. I was having a problem with I love Starbucks coffee, and I'm a gold, in their badging system, their little points and rewards system. I was having trouble with one of my badges, and it took me about 10 minutes to find a place to email for help because it wouldn't work the way that I thought that it should work. And it was really, I spent quite a lot of time and I was kind of crabby by the time I was done with it. Requiring confirmation before data deletion is a very nice feature. So not letting people inadvertently hit a delete button, but we don't want to make it irritating to people. So if people are adding information, we don't necessarily want to ask them, are you sure you want to add this? We want to use this idea of user confirmation before an action sparingly, only if they're going to hurt themselves, not if it's just a normal course of business. If the normal course of business is to add things or to make a sale, we want to not be irritating to people by making them confirm things. That's the primary goal. Just ask for confirmation before doing something that will hurt them. It's very lovely to be able to provide a way for people to recover data that they inadvertently delete. We want to let people have an undo option or a way to let them back out of an action, because we've all had that, hit the enter and go, oh my gosh, what did I do? I didn't really want to do that. We would like to be able to be very kind in our error message where we highlight the part that's a problem. So I don't know if you've ever gone through a whole website where you've added a lot of information and you hit enter and you know that there's an error, you just don't know what field there's an error in. Or that you have an error in a field, you fix it, you hit it again, the next field gets an error, and you fix that, and the next one gets an error. It's really terrific to get as much information with one click as possible. You hit an error, you should get all of the error messages back at once so they can be fixed, and on. And of course, hyperlinks really helps people navigate through help. We want to minimize the amount of data that people have to input. So when I was talking a few minutes ago about the telephone number issue, they could have fixed that issue with something called an input mask, a template, a pattern for us to enter our data. So sometimes if you enter a phone number, you'll type in the area code. The system will automatically skip to the next field, which is not the area code, but the next three numbers. And then, just as you're typing in, it just automatically moves you to the different fields. And it carries that data in its data record as three separate fields. Or you type it in and automatically dashes get put in. I mean, that's really a well-designed, user-centered design, not making people put in dashes, not making people, I've entered a phone number about a couple of weeks ago. I can't remember where it was, but it was a site where I actually typed in the dashes, 123-123-1234 in the phone number, and it made me take them out. It said there's an error. You are only supposed, no blanks, no dashes, no numbers. And I thought, why couldn't they just take them out? They clearly recognized there were dashes. Why couldn't they just take them out if that's how they want to store the data? So we want masks, input masks, edit rules, processes that make it easy for people to input data. Establishing a list of predefined values, like states, zip codes, those kinds of things. It's really lovely if you can type in your zip code and the state fills into, and the city fills into an address field. Those kinds of things can really be very helpful. And we certainly want to have rules that enforce data integrity. We would not want somebody to put in a zip code 60305, which is a Dominican zip code, and allow people to put in Detroit, Michigan in the city and state. That would really be a problem. An error should come up that says the zip code does not match the state. We want provide easy feedback to users. So we want display messages to be logical, so error messages close to where the error occurred. We want to alert users to processing time. So we want to have not just, if you have a Mac, the little spinning color circle, that's a systems problem, but we want to be able to say, like Orbitz does when you go and do the search, searching all the airline sites, this will take a minute. Or when I did my airline reservation and it said, don't hit, we're processing your request, don't hit enter again. We want to have messages remain on the screen long enough for people to read them. It's really terrible if they flash up and go away. We want to let users know when the task was, if not just when there's an error, but that it was successful as well. So feedback on both problems and success. We want text explanation. So if you mouse over, if you put your cursor over an icon, a little text box should show up saying what it is. And messages that are specific and understandable. So I don't know if any of you have ever typed in a URL that was wrong and you get something back called a 404 error. That is not really very nice user interface design, to have something that's just a number come back. It's okay to have a number from the system implementation perspective. It's really great to know that error 404 happened because you can find that in the software, in the code, but it's not helpful to users. So if you say 404 web page not found, that's different. You can use codes in your error messages as long as there are specific and understandable and readable error messages, human understandable error messages. And we certainly want to create an attractive layout and design. Now this is tricky because what's attractive to one person is either boring or gaudy to someone else. And part of this is a matter of personal taste. Some people like using lots of different fonts and lots of different colors. But in general, the current thinking is towards a more minimal design. Don't use lots of different typefaces. Don't use lots of different colors. Certainly don't use anything that blinks or can be difficult for people to look at for long periods of time. If people are going to be at a system doing things, having lots of colors, lots of bright things can make it difficult for them to focus on their work. We want to use hyperlinks to allow people to jump to different places as long as they have a way to get back easily. We want to be able to group functions and information logically. This idea of screen density is really important. It's having a good amount of white space, unlike this screen, which I am showing to you here. Having white space is important, and especially if you're going to be looking at a screen for a long time and trying to add data and work with the data on that screen. We want to have titles and messages that are consistent and that are in the same location across different screens. Again, consistent terminology. We want to make sure that commands have the same effect, that save, it works the same way on screen 1 as it does on screen 2, that we use this, we're using consistent terms and that those terms will behave the same way. And the same thing with mouse actions. We want to use familiar terms and images, and this goes, correlates to transparency. Yellow, caution; green, go; red, stop. And if you're going to use those colors, because they're traditional and help us understand, to give us another reinforce the functions, that we use it the same way all the time in all the screens. We want to be able to, for experts, certainly have keystroke alternatives for each mouse click. So Command S for save, Command F for file or find, help, etc. For copy, and we want to use the common commands, the familiar commands, for cut and copy and paste. We don't want to make up new ones. It's just unkind to your users and will get you lots of crabby messages. If you're using Windows-based applications, using the Windows look and feel. If you are doing Mac applications, using Mac look and feel. Having consistent, being consistent, again, is really helpful. We want to avoid using complex terms. We want terms that come from everyday processes. Your customers, the people who work with you, who are going to use your systems, don't need to necessarily know your vocabulary. We want it to be easy for people to use this system. That is the high-level overview of user-centered design. You have already started this with your use cases. You've done some of that initial task analysis, and now you're going to start building screens to accomplish those tasks using these guidelines. If you have questions, let me know. Talk to you soon.